up to Mets fans? Welcome back to the True Mets Talk post-game show. You know what it is. My guy Rob and myself got you all covered for the New York Mets post-game coverage. And as you all know by now, this entire season, after huge wins, what do, Rob? What do? We spam those W's in the chat.
Oh,
It's an NL wildcard game one win for your New York Mets by a score of 8-4. We'll be going into the X's and O's of this lineup. The pitching, right? And Luis Severino, who seemed to get stronger and stronger as the game went by. We got you all covered. Please, as always, hit the thumbs up on both channels, on both streams. This is being streamed to my YouTube. This is being streamed to Rob's YouTube. Subscribe to both channels, all that fun stuff. And most importantly, drop those comments in the live chat. We want to hear what you all have to think and say about our victorious New York Mets. Rob, how you doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. You know what that was? That was a team win. That was a team effort win, guys. Right? Severino was clearly dealing with some mechanical issues through the first 4 innings, and it looked like he was actually his arm was like a little bit behind his body, and a lot of pitches just kept on going up and up. But he figured it out in the 5th and 6th inning, and the bullpen did the rest, man. I'm excited, man. We're in the driver's seat now. We're in the driver's seat now, baby.
We're here and in the driver's seat. As you said, Rob, 100%. This feels so damn good. You talk about conquering Atlanta. You talk about going back into Milwaukee on a short turnaround. Obviously, to start off the game, Luis Severino did not have his best stuff. The Mets got off to a 2-0 deficit, but guess what? They are resilient and they clawed their way back in that top of the second inning. And we'll talk about it here in just a second. The next slide is dedicated to the New York Mets manager and Carlos Mendoza and all of the right decisions, all of the correct buttons that he is pressing, during these playoffs and this entire season. Really, the manager of the year in my book. We'll talk about him here in just a second. But let's talk about Luis Severino first and foremost. And by the way, guys, again, shout out to the chat. Everybody in the chat, whether either on your live chat or my live chat, I had the live chat poll going. Player of the game between Luis Severino, Mark Vientos, JD Martinez, Jesse Winker. You let me know who is your New York Mets player of the game. Make sure you spam those W's in the live chat. Shout out to everybody, Patty, Cope, George, everybody. If I literally clicked on every single comment, we would take an hour to go through every single comment. But Rob, give me the thoughts and opinions on Luis Severino, because this was a tale of two halves of Luis Severino this game. And it seemed like he was getting stronger and stronger as the outing progressed. To me, during the 3rd or 4th inning, I was like, listen, it might be time to pull Luis Severino. He was pitching a little timid. He was pitching a little bit scared, in my humble opinion. But guess what? This is what happens when your offense goes out there and gets you a comfortable lead. You're able to pitch as if you have a 4-run lead. And you know what happens then? You don't pitch scared. So props to the offense. But what did you see at Luis Severino?
Yeah, I seen a gritty performance. Like, this is a guy, look, we've known, me and my dad were talking about it during the game. Like, Severino started to look a little bit, like a little timid, right? It started to creep back in his mind, all his postseason starts and big game starts. But you know what? It comes down, look, we kill Hefner. We kill a lot of the coaching staff sometimes besides Mendoza, right? Are we going to give Hefner a little bit of credit here? Because Severino figured it out. And Hefner went out to the mound twice in this game with him, and they figured it out. And it's excellent job by Severino. Listen, the way it was going, I thought he was going to be pulled after the 5th inning, but the Mets came back with the lead, and I'm like, maybe they should bring him out for the 5th. Give him a little bit, get him going a little bit. Got the lead. Sure enough, 1, 2, 3. And then what happened? We got 8. We had more of a lead, and guess what? Bring him out in the 6th. And look, he got better when the game went on. And that's what I wanted to see with Severino, because there was a lot of questions with Luis Severino in big games. 100% agree with all of that. And the fact that he bared down, figured it out in game, which has been his big problem in his career. He can't figure it out in game. And Justin overlooked the offense picked him up today, right? Because it was good. It was looking pretty bad, like early on, but like, oh, come on, really? First inning, like, it just we didn't need that. But you know what? The offense came right back, did what they had to do. Severino calmed down, and it's amazing what a pitcher can do when they have the lead. It's a little calming, right? It's a little bit, you can take a deep breath. One mistake ain't going to change the game. And it's amazing what the runs can do for a pitcher.
It's not rocket science, Rob, right? We talk about the analysis of postseason baseball, of crunch time baseball for the New York Mets. It's not rocket science when it comes to the pitcher's comfortability up on that mound, right? Severino did not look sharp. He looked like he was pressing. He was missing just barely with that up and away fastball or the up and in fastball, depending on if you were a lefty or a righty in the Brewers lineup. And he was kind of pissed at the home plate umpire because he felt like he was squeezing him. I will say, in all fairness to the home plate umpire, it looked like some of those were balls and he was just missing. But again, the mental toughness to go out there continuously and just grind out these innings. Luis Severino, I know that he gave up 4 earned runs over 6 innings pitched. I know he didn't have the strikeout pitches working, only 3 strikeouts with 2 walks. But again, you're able to stretch out this outing into the 6th inning. You see here 105 was the pitch count for Luis Severino. Jose Butto after, Luis Severino. Can we say anything more about Jose Butto? He was absolutely feeling himself tonight for the New York Mets in relief. And again, you're able to navigate this bullpen in a way that you don't have Edwin Diaz. You knew he wasn't going to be available even in a close situation because what happened the last 2 times out, right, in Atlanta and Milwaukee, this was as good of a job as the New York Mets could have done to set the tone early in a place that they've notoriously struggled in Milwaukee. And I could not be prouder of this team, Rob, whatsoever. From Severino to Stanek to Butto, these guys performed. And it's clear that no matter what happens, even if they get out to an early deficit, as you saw, it was 2-0. Mark Vientos makes a little bit of a blunder. And it was a hard baseball to judge in that 1st inning. But again, Bryce Terang is a thorn in the New York Mets sides. Like this guy at the leadoff spot, he has a sub 700 OPS for the year 2024. And then he just decides to start killing the New York Mets, as we've seen from different players throughout history of us watching the Mets. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. We can talk about so many things tonight, and we will get into it further in terms of the offense and in terms of the actual pitching performance again. But what a job by the New York Mets taking game 1 in Milwaukee. The pressure was on the New York Mets. I never say that. I never say that the Mets have any pressure on them. But for me, coming into this game, again, knowing the circumstances, playing however many days in a row, short turnaround, you clinched, you celebrated, but it's a day game or essentially an early evening game for you, and they went out there and they got the job done. Again, hats off to Luis Severino. Didn't have his best stuff, but he found it when it mattered the most. We have these question marks, right? And we had these question marks coming into the game about Luis Severino, what he did in big-time games in the Yankee uniform, what he did last week in Atlanta during game 1 of that series that got postponed. He went out there, and for me, he shut me up, and I think he shut up a lot of fans in terms of that were questioning him, whether he could go out there and perform under duress and under pressure. At least for me. Do you agree, Rob?
100%, 100%. Like I thought he was gonna implode. To be quite honest with you, like I felt like it was like, oh, here we go again. This is the question that we were concerned about. But look, this is the difference between a team that has this feeling, this magic, this. I think the confidence is spilling through this team right now, and I think it just trickles down to all the players. Like, when Severino was struggling, the whole infield came in on him before even Hefner got out there and started pat him on the back, started to, motivate him and started talking to him. Because Severino was pissed, especially with the umpire early on. And, he was unraveling. And the good news is that they all understand each other. And you see how quickly he settled down and just figured it out. And everything just started to look, honestly, you said there was pressure on this team. They played very loose today. I don't know if it was that liquor still in their system or what, but I'll tell you that right now. They played very loose today. They never felt like they were going to lose this game today, even when they were down 2-0. They just played loose. And it's amazing when you slay a dragon in that Brave game. It's amazing. All the weight is kind of off your shoulders a little bit. And I said this, Chris. It feels like they're playing with house money, and I think they think they can win regardless. But I feel like there's this house money situation where everybody's still feeling good, everybody's in good moods. They just played well. Everybody, Severino picking himself back up when the Mets gave him a lead, and it just all trickled down. Everything it was just a team effort, man. I give the player of the game, the whole team. But I do want to say one thing, but I think you got a slide for that. But yeah, you go.
I do, and we will get to that. We will get to that. Trust me. We are going to give the props where props are due here, and I know exactly what you want to talk about. We do have a slide for that. Again, if you guys are here, we got over 200 people in the chat with us. We definitely appreciate you. Please smash those thumbs up buttons. If you're subscribed to my channel, head over to Talking Mets with Rob, subscribe to his channel, and if you're over on his channel, come over to my channel, CP New York Sports, and make sure you subscribe. We got you all covered with pre-games, post-games, roundtables galore to the very end of this season. And then guess what? We're not done talking Mets baseball. We'll be here with you in the offseason as well. We're not going anywhere. But again, right? Pitching was awesome. It was a total team performance, like you said. I think it's the perfect synopsis. And I had to listen to the ESPN broadcast sort of talk about, and everyone did because SNY is not available now for playoff baseball, unfortunately. But they kept on talking about, especially during the 30-minute interview and what it seemed with Christian Yelich in that dugout, a guy that's not even playing baseball for the Brewers right now. Like, can we interview somebody that's actually on the field or something? I don't even know. Game interviews are annoying to begin with, but it doesn't matter. They kept on talking about the Brewers' resiliency and how they adopted this sort of same mentality that they had under Craig Counsell, now under Pat Murphy, right? But how about the New York Mets? This is a damn resilient bunch too. And if you looked at the celebrations, right? If you looked at Carlos Mendoza's speech after they clinched yesterday, nobody expected the New York Mets to be here, right? Nobody. And the fact that what they're doing right now is just a testament to the grittiness after starting off 0-5, after going 11 games under 500. They are here now. And we are talking about this team for a damn reason, Rob. We are talking about this team for a damn reason. And just salute to this entire team. Let's talk a little bit offense, though. Let's talk a little bit offense, right? Because again, kind of tough. Freddie Peralta, talented pitcher, definite ace of that Milwaukee Brewers staff. He looked pretty damn good in that first inning. He got the Mets down in order. Cade, Lindor, and Iglesias back-to-back to start off the game. And then I think he got Nimmo to pop out or something like that in the first inning. Again, to see your team go down immediately 2-0, it's not like these guys just rolled over. They had sound at bats. They made adjustments. And what did I say in the pregame, Rob? If you guys missed the pregame, I said he was going to be trying to establish, and he being Freddie Peralta, the four-seam fastball early and often. And that's exactly what he did. Shout out to the middle of this lineup. Vientos. That's my player of the game. I'm not going to lie to you. That's my player of the game. Clutch baseball, sound approach at the plate, especially from a young guy, his first full season. Hats off to Mark for doing it this entire season, but also on the most important stage, Pete Alonso taking the walks, right? He's not chasing. We don't need, we would love for Pete Alonso to hit the ball out the yard, but we need him on base by any means necessary. And if that means he walks 3 times because the opposing pitcher doesn't want to throw him a strike and they want to see if he bites at the down and away slider, which he has been for the majority of the season, then so be it. Lay off that pitch, take your base, and let the guys behind you. And Jesse Winker and JD Martinez do their job, because that's what they got brought into this organization to do in the offseason and at the trade deadline for each of those guys respectively. Let's start off with Jesse Winker. Great at bat to tie up the ball game. Talks a little bit of smack to Willy Adames. I see some people in the chat are wondering about what the history is there. Quite simple. I don't know the history there. I know these guys were teammates at one point for the Brewers. I believe Jesse Winker was a Brewer for a short stint. I don't know where that kind of goes back to in terms of that feud, but I love to see that aggression from Jesse Winker. He takes his time on a triple, a 2 RBI triple, to turn to Willy Adames, who's the secondary cutoff guy in the infield, and throw some jabs at him. This is playoff baseball, guys. This is the attitude and the mentality that I've personally been waiting for from the New York Mets. And I love it. I love it, Rob.
Yo, absolutely. Look, with Alonso, right? That's what I want to see. Like, it's the eye that has been the biggest problem. Reading pitches, right? He laid off a ton of sliders today, which was great. He swung through a couple of fastballs that he should have crushed. But I like the fact that he didn't try to do too much in situations where he usually does try to do too much and it hurts the team, right? He took his walks. That's a good sign. Seeing the baseball a little bit, that's a good sign. Now, hopefully, he puts the bat to the ball more and does some damage. But you're 100% right about Jesse Winker, right? And could we give more credit? How much more credit can we give Carlos Mendoza? We didn't question it, technically, big time, but we were like interested in that Winker over JD Martinez. What happened? Early on in the game, Winker comes through, gets the job done, and what happens? Fifth inning comes around. JD Martinez comes into the ball game, and Mendoza did a great job because he made Murphy either keeping the lefty or bringing another reliever. So Mendoza made him choose. All right, you want that lefty against Martinez? That's in our favor. You're going to bring in the righty? Well, guess what? You got to use another reliever. Mendoza outmanaged Murphy. Now, I like Pat Murphy. He's a good manager. All he does is
Yeah,
give credit to the
absolutely.
Mets. He gave a ton of credit to the Mets through the game interview and even in the post game. But he got outmanaged by Mendoza today because Mendoza made him make a move or keep the lefty in there, where I think Murphy wanted to hold that reliever and it ended up costing him because he had a lefty against Martinez. Great job by Mendoza. Great at bat by Martinez. He didn't look good on those two swing and misses, but that he just flicked it to right field, and that was it. That added a little bit more insurance runs, and you know what? It felt like look, you're gonna be nervous, right? It's a playoff game, anything can happen, but it felt like that was like the final nail in the coffin for this game. Like it just was perfect. The Winker, who was struggling, right, got the start. Again, another gut feeling by Mendoza. I know it was probably the numbers of Peralta, but it
6
was
of
probably
18
more.
off
Yeah,
Peralta for
yeah.
sure.
I think it was more of a gut feeling. Like he wants to get this guy going because that's another guy off the bench that you can utilize in this series or in future postseason games. And it was just outstanding. Like, I mean, Lindor went 0 for 4, and this team still scored 8 runs. It's a great win and great team effort from this team.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you see this guy right here, right next to me, right here? This guy, manager of the
Yep.
year. Give him that damn award. Um, because listen, we talked about it on the pregame. Again, if you guys don't pay attention to the pregames, we talk about all these situations. We talked about Winker. We talked about him being 6 of 18 in his career off of Freddie Peralta. Really coming into the game, the only New York Met in this lineup that was successful in his career off of Freddie Peralta. We talked about that. But to have the trust in him on the biggest stage in a playoff after he goes 3 for 42 in the month of September, an abysmal month for Jesse Winker. That's exactly what good managers do. They have faith in their guys, especially guys like Winker, a veteran that was brought in here to be that difference maker whenever he was called upon. Quick question. I know he had the 2 RBI triple. In his second at bat, he grounded back to the pitcher in Peralta. He looked a little bit shaken up. Do you think that had anything to do with the decision of taking him out or not? Not really.
Maybe it made Mendoza's decision a little bit more easier. I think Mendoza was going to make that move regardless, but because you're not going to have Winker face a lefty. I don't think that would have made sense. But yeah, you know what? Maybe Winker is dealing with something we just don't know about it. And great job by the Mets, kind of disguising it or hiding it. But yeah, I think he looked good going around the bases in the triple. But yeah, you know what? Either way, I mean, I'm still going to give credit to Mendoza for making that decision because to leave a guy in there who doesn't really hit lefties and is not in there against lefties a lot, if he was hurt, it was still a good decision regardless if he wasn't or not. But yeah, I mean, look, you don't want Winker hurt. Maybe they are trying to protect him a little bit, but he still started them. So, I mean, maybe he's healthy enough. Maybe he has a little tweak in the hamstring or something like that. But, I mean, it's just everybody. I mean, both of them came through today, and, Winker for sure. And we need it because he's going to be a big bench guy piece off the bench for sure.
Again, like everybody at this point of the season, they talk about it in basketball all the time late in the playoffs. Everybody is dealing with some sort of injury. This is a 162 game season. They just played their 163rd game, and they're going to play their 164th game tomorrow. Everybody is dealing with some sort of injury, whether it's publicly known for the superstars like Francisco Lindor or not known for the guys, the bench pieces like Jesse Winker. Everybody at some point is dealing with something. And again, if you're 60, 70, 80%, you're able to suit up, the medical staff deems you right, you're going to play. And these guys want to play because they have a passion, and that's just their mental toughness, and that's their mentality. Like they got a killer instinct, just an absolute just dogs in all of these guys. Like they want to be out there, and I love it. Listen, first and foremost, because we're about 21 minutes into the stream, be here for the next at least probably 25 to half an hour. We got more to talk about, especially going to game 2 tomorrow. Shout out to that Ford. I'm subscribed to both channels. Love the passion. Mets fan since 86. Be like that Ford. I appreciate you. Subscribe to both of our channels. You won't regret it. If you love the passion, we're here daily talking New York Mets baseball, whether it's a win or it's a loss. We're not going to BS you. We're going to give it to you straight, and we're going to tell you like it is, because the New York Mets are playing great baseball, and that's exactly how it is right now, and we love it. But again, we don't shy away from the losses. Listen, there's so many other things that can be said about like actual turning points of this game, Rob. Can we take a look at, let's say, for example, Starling Marte, who went and took the 0 for 2, but again, you have the opportunity to be a productive guy in this lineup and have a productive out early in the ball game. And you have a guy on third base, less than 2 outs, and what does he do? He smokes the ball to center field, gets caught on the warning track, but gets rewarded with the RBI. That's not something, again, besides the RBI, he took the 0 for 2, which most people will be focused on, but he did his job in order to give the Mets lead at that, the Mets the lead at that point. And that's something that we talk about all the time. You cannot miss those type of opportunities against these elite ball clubs and these great ball clubs like the Braves and the Brewers and whoever else the Mets may come across, because that's what will come back to bite you. And Starling Marte did just that. And also, let's talk about the guy who extended his hitting streak on an infield single by diving head first, something you don't see every day at first base from a guy that's also 34 years old. That's Mr. OMG, Jose Iglesias, doing whatever it takes to extend the inning. I believe it was 2 outs at that point, correct?
Yep, it was. Yep.
He gets an RBI because of it. He just beats the throw. He extends the inning. And guess what? The Mets go on to add 4 more runs in a huge 5th inning with 5 runs. This is incredible. You talk about the little mistakes, right? Edwin Diaz not covering the bag yesterday, right, was a huge, but it's like the little things like the PFPs that these pitchers work on covering first base on a ball hit to the first baseman. Well, this is something that you don't work on. You don't work on diving into first on an infield throw. In all my years of playing baseball, I never worked on that. I worked on slides to second, slides to third, maybe even to home, but never into first unless I was diving back on a pickoff. This is what having veteran presence and leadership does to your ball club. Huge, Rob. Huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the start and the turnaround to winning this game, and I think Ked said it in the chat, slotted into first base and extending that in and getting that RBI, right? I mean, when you see a veteran, right, who's basically out of the league last year and not even playing, and then giving everything, throwing his body on first base. And you know what? It made the pitcher miss first as well. Like the pitcher was a little late there, and Iglesias was going to run hard because he always does. And look, it caught the pitcher off guard. He was a little late getting to the bag, and that just makes everybody else get more pumped up. you were like, hey, you know what? I should hustle down the line. I mean, look at Tyron Taylor the other day, against the Braves when he ripped the ball and it bounced back, it spun back into the fair territory, right? The hustle, right? If those hustle plays aren't done, who knows what the Braves game? We're not even be in the playoffs, right? And today, with again Iglesias, the hustle play, diving, giving up his body, right? And there's no more excuses, right? Everybody's hurt. Everybody has a little bit of pain. You got to get the job done. And these guys actually performed probably more than I actually expected, to be quite honest with you, because this is going to be a tough game for us, right? Flying out of Atlanta, going to Milwaukee, no day off, right? Probably a little tipsy. And, Milwaukee was waiting for us. And we haven't brought this up, and I don't know if you have a slide of this, but I just want to, if it's like maybe a preview of it, but the Brewers have choked a lot in the playoffs. They've played really bad in the playoffs. So the pressure is all on them now, right? They're at home. You saw the faces of Brewer fans. They've seen this story before. ESPN put up a graphic showing how many leads they had in the NLDS in wildcard rounds. They had a 2-run lead, 3-run lead, and they lost all those. And they just, again, lost today when they had a 2-run lead. So this is the Brewers team that has it in their mind that, oh, shit, here we go again. Something that the Mets always had to deal with. Now the Brewers are dealing with. You got them hanging by a thread. You have them on that line. You have them on a cliff. You got to push them off tomorrow. I don't want a heartbeat step on their throats tomorrow. And that's what the Mets got to do. And I think Manaea is pitching, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's absolutely talk about it. I think it is official that Sean Manaea is going in game 2 for the New York Mets. And we were kind of talking about this on the pregame show, whether the Mets were going to try to get cute and throw maybe a Jose Quintana just to try to see if they can squeak by and then save Sean Manaea for a potential NLDS. Nah, they're going for it. They want to, quote unquote, step on the Brewers' throats, like you just said, Rob, and that is throwing your best pitcher in game 2. Now, the TBD pitcher for the Brewers, again, has not been announced. That's why you see the blank eye here with the question mark. We don't know officially at this point, unless I guess if Pat Murphy has already stated it in his post-game presser after game 1, I would assume that they're going to also try to throw their best, right, behind Freddie Peralta, especially a guy that has had a lot of success this season. And that, to me, we have seen this guy already, and he came in relief in that game 2 in Milwaukee, the last go around. That is Tobias Myers. I think that it's going to be Tobias Myers going for the Milwaukee Brewers. But again, from the New York Mets perspective, why not try to close out a series in game 2 so you don't have to play that game 3? You get an extra day of rest at that point as well before the NLDS. This would make the most sense to me. It does make the most sense, and that's why they're doing it. Sean Manaea, 12-6 in the regular season with a 3.47 ERA. We know about the mechanical adjustments. We know just how good he was and how he held down this Mets rotation. Is going up against this Brewers lineup in game 2 tomorrow, trying to take the series after an electric game 1, 8-4. Your New York Mets are victorious. So, what do you make of the game tomorrow? What should we expect? Like what's going on? What's going through your mind?
Well, I think they got a tremendous amount of confidence going into tomorrow. Like I think they found something in Atlanta. They brought it to Milwaukee. I just think they found it. Like, I don't remember the last time the Mets played this loose in a big game. Like, I just didn't. Like, with Manaea, I'm not surprised that Mendoza wants to just put the hammer down and get that extra day off. And that would be great for a whole bullpen that basically, MLB tried to screw us and the Braves with that whole decision-making stuff. Listen, I think he's going to perform tomorrow. Now, just because he performs doesn't mean the Mets are going to win, right? You talk about Myers, he might be the pitcher, right? They're probably going to go with their best, even though Peralta technically is their ace, but Myers is downright deadly with his stuff. He's really good. The Mets have hit good pitching before, so it's not Schwellenbach, so maybe we might hit that guy as well. But when it comes to Manaea, I think look, Manaea's last 2 outings been a little shaky, but he just got to stay within himself. Keep your team in the ball game. Severino kept us in the ball game today. He wasn't great. He kept us in the ball game. With Manaea, do I expect more? Of course, right? I expect him. Right? I would love for him to go 7 innings tomorrow. 1 run and go 8th and 9th with Maton Diaz and call it a night. We got 2 days off and head on to Philadelphia. So, and speaking of that though, when it comes to Manaea, in general, I do think that his fastball has been a tick down in his last 2 starts. I could be wrong, but I think I was looking at his metrics when it came to his miles per hour, and it's been a tick down. Now I don't know if that's just maybe his mechanics were a little bit off. Maybe he was getting a little bit tired, or he was trying to just overthrow. And sometimes when I gets away from you, you kind of sometimes you might get a tick up, but it was a tick down. I don't know if that's just just the way it was. He didn't have it that day, or is mechanical or what. But I think he's going to show up tomorrow, right? He showed up in so many big games for us, and why not have confidence in Sean Manaea? Like, how can he not? Right? I think he'll pitch well. At the very least, I think he'll keep us in the ball game, and that's basically what we need to do.
Yeah, and again, you're talking about a pitcher that is looking for a rebound type of start, right? We know the first time out this past Friday against the Milwaukee Brewers, he got off to a horrendous start. He threw 30 plus pitches in that first inning, and it kind of went downhill from there. But while you were talking, I was kind of making faces. So if you guys were kind of wondering what I was doing, it was I was trying to research if the Brewers have announced who they're starting for Game 2, and they have announced it. Already forgot the Brewers beat reporter name that broke this news. Shout out to him though. It's going to be Frankie Montas. Frankie Montas is going to be starting for the Brewers in Game 2, which is really it's not surprising, but it is surprising because I think the Brewers in their strategy, what they're going to do is they're going to try to throw Montas. Because if you realize what Pat Murphy did today, he pulled Freddie Peralta after only 68 pitches, right?
Yeah.
And I know that he didn't look good, but again, he's being aggressive with the quote unquote good bullpen that they have in terms of mitigating any further damage from the starting rotation. What they're going to do, and we've seen Frankie Montas already in that initial series just a couple days ago. I believe he went 4 innings pitched. Would he give up 2 earned runs, one of them being a home run to I forget who actually hit that home run. But anyways, I think he's going to go with Frankie Montas for a couple of innings. And then right after that, you're going to get Tobias Myers coming out of the bullpen for them. And it's going to be a sort of opener type feel as long as Frankie Montas can go in terms of being successful. So again, kind of surprising to me. I thought that they would have already just announced Tobias Myers, or I think Pure Adrenaline Sports, John is saying someone like Savali for Game 2, but they're going to Frankie Montas, which is kind of a bold move, allowing a New York Mets lineup to see this guy for a second time around. I know against Spencer Schwellenbach, I think that's the only guy the Mets have struggled with a second and a third time through in the season seeing. We'll see how it pays off for the Brewers, but again, it's going to be Sean Manaea versus Frankie Montas as your probables in Game 2. So yeah, all eyes on Sean Manaea though. I have full confidence in him. I definitely agree with you. You have to if you're the New York Mets.
Yeah, it is an interesting move with Montas. I don't know maybe the plan that you just said, maybe that's the goal here, or they're just maybe Pat Murphy just has a lot of confidence in his team to win Game 2, and guess who he got in Game 3? You got Myers in there. So but it is interesting though, because if you go back to the game that Montas pitched against the Mets, and he pitched pretty well against the Mets, they couldn't hit his fastball, and the Mets were still scuffling there. They couldn't find their offense, and it was just looking really bad, lifeless performances. But the fastball was the issue with the team in that game against Montas. And he wasn't throwing anything special. He was working his off-speed and breaking pitches because the Mets weren't hitting his fastball, and he was working off of that. You got to hit the fastball, right? The Mets did that very well today with every pitcher that came in with the Brewers. And, they didn't let the fastball get by him as much as they did in the previous series. So that's very interesting though. But you might be right. Maybe Montas is kind of like the opener, and then bring in Myers so Murphy can kind of like have a little coaching back and forth strategy here, where like Mendoza's going to set his lineup, take Montas out at the first 1 inning, and then bring in a guy that Mendoza didn't set their lineup for, and that could be a bold move as well. They could do that as maybe one inning just to get the lineup out there that Mendoza put out there, and now you got to deal with Myers. That's a strong possibility.
Yeah, and I think honestly, like I said, Tobias Myers, I mean, I've seen this guy throw obviously, and the workload and the sample size this season speaks for itself. And I think he's a little bit more of an electric option than Frankie Montas in a game where your backs are against the wall. But again, we'll see how that decision plays for them. Again, please, 35 minutes into the stream, continue to spam those thumbs up buttons if you like the instant reactions, the post-game analysis, everything else in between on both of our channels, not just mine, on Rob's as well. Make sure you subscribe to both channels. We appreciate you all showing the support in the live chat, making sure you guys are voting in the in-stream live chat polls that we're doing here for player of the game. Surprisingly, the last time I checked, with 72 votes in on mine, they were choosing Luis Severino for player of the game. And I can't fault them for it, but I'm just going to say this. Personally, when you take a look at these at-bats and hunting the fastball, like you just said, Rob, nobody, in my humble opinion, does that better on this squad than Mark Vientos. And he reaped the benefits of that strategy and of that approach today with a couple of base knocks and a couple of RBIs. So I was also just looking at a bunch of SNY post-game interviews.
Me too.
John Boy also was doing a breakdown of like what Willie Adames and the whole Jesse Winker exchange was. Adames was telling him to meet him outside in the parking lot after the game. Jesse Winker saying he doesn't really want to talk about it. I don't know, just a whole debacle, but that could set a storyline for game 2. I don't know. I'm not sure we're going to see Jesse Winker in the lineup, although Frankie Montas is a righty. We'll see. Maybe Mendoza goes back to him for game 2 if the injury, or if there is any injury, right? If he's healthy and ready to go, who knows? But again, I thought that was just funny. But yeah, this was an electric performance. I'm feeling damn good right now, Rob. I think every Mets fan at this point in time should be feeling damn good. On a night where Mr. Smile, like your t-shirt says right there, goes 0 for 4, and the Mets are still able to put up competent, incredible at-bats, right? And score 8 runs, we should always feel good with that type of performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lindor didn't, he had decent at bats, but again, no result. But yeah, I mean, this is the whole point when I talked about the mentality of this team, and I think that I think it still goes right back to beating the Braves. I think that mentality I'm telling you, it just flipped the switch. It feels like it took the weight off their shoulders, and I think that was key, right? I think even if they would have lost game 1 and won game 2, I don't think it would have meant as much. I don't think it would have fixed, or at least slayed the dragons, so we speak. With all these phrases that we're using, exercise the demon. I don't think it would have mattered, but the way we did it, and the Braves aren't looking good against the Padres right now. They're down 2-0, and the at bats in the top of the first were just garbage. Like, I mean, so the fact is, I think it comes back to the whole mentality of this team, right? They did something that no team in the history of the Mets with the Braves have overcome. And it wasn't a playoff series or anything like that, but it felt like a playoff game because it clearly was, right? Winning that first game meant everything to both teams, and it was obvious over the last two innings of the game. So, look, the mentality, I think, has a lot to do with it. Obviously, you got to put the bat to ball, you got to make the right pitches, but I just feel like this team, ever since leaving Atlanta and doing what they did, I think they're carefree. I think they don't believe they're going to lose anymore, and that is huge for a team. Just look at the Phillies and the Mets, and I talked about this all year, and people are like, don't bring up those teams. Those teams were better. They weren't that much better, right? The fact of the matter is, when you have that mentality and you do something that has been an issue and you finally get over that hump, right, and you just sneak in, just like the Phillies did on game 161, 162, just like the Diamondbacks did on game 161. When you sneak into the playoffs and you do it the way you did it, there's a lot of momentum there. And something about that third wild card, Chris, that doesn't get enough attention around national audience and around YouTube in general. Like, I bring it up and people hate me for doing it, but it's a fact. There's something about this third wild card, that extra wild card going in, that brings the best out of these teams because nobody expects anything from them. Nobody expected Phillies in 2022, Diamondbacks in 2023. And yeah, people are talking about the Mets nationally, but have you seen all the predictions with all these, quote unquote experts or writers or everybody who just does predictions? The Mets don't make it past the NLDS. Sweep, people are talking about with the Phillies, right? They think it's going to go to 3 with the Brewers, and it still might, right? Tough theories, but nobody believes in this Mets team still. And Mendoza's right what he said yesterday with the celebration. People still don't believe in this team. A lot of Met fans gave up after 3-0 going into the 8th inning with Schwellenbach still on the mound. And we all understand that. But the fact that nobody's still believing in us and thinking that this is just, sooner or later the bubble is going to burst, the air is going to come out of the balloon. I think this team believes they can win, and they don't care what anybody else thinks. I think they have that mentality now, and that is huge for a team. And they're a good team, really good team. We forget that part too sometimes.
And I honestly prefer it that way, right? I would honestly almost rather, be looked after or looked past if you're the national media, if ESPN is not giving you enough credit and they're always talking about Philly this, Philly that. We saw that on the ESPN broadcast on Sunday Night Baseball in that 4-game set, right? It was Philly, Philly, Philly. That's fine. You have the talking points about the other teams? Great. Let's go out there and win a ball game. Because then at that point, they're going to be forced to talk about that team from Queens, right? They're going to be forced to talk about the team that reps orange and blue. They're going to be forced to do it. And I can't wait for that moment. So again, job's not finished. I'm going to say that after every single win. Hopefully it's a win tomorrow. And guess what? The job will be finished in the wild card round, but the overall goal, still will not be finished. Like we said all season long, Rob, we said get into the dance, and funny things happen when you carry momentum into the postseason, especially in seasons past as a wild card team.
Yep.
So I definitely agree with you there 100%. As long as these guys believe in themselves, nothing else really matters. A couple other things that I wanted to talk about here before we kind of wrap things up. First of all, if you guys haven't been paying attention, baseball all day long today, pretty much. Crazy ending to the Tigers and the Astros game. The Astros were threatening. The Tigers end up winning that 3-1. You see the Baltimore Orioles drop a game to the Royals as well. Just crazy stuff happening all around baseball. Obviously, our New York Mets are victorious, and now the Padres and the Braves are playing on the nightcap here. But what do you think, right, as our last talking point before final thoughts going into tomorrow, what do you think the strategy is out of the bullpen past Sean Manaea for the Mets, right? Because you saw a game today where we talked about Kranick and how he's on the roster. We said that he wasn't really going to get high leverage situations, but in case, right, there was a point in time where Luis Severino was looking like he was only going to go 3 innings, so you needed a long man potentially, but he kind of rebounded there. What do you think is the approach tomorrow? Jose Butto presumably maybe not available, although knowing every single guys, he might very well be. He went 2 innings today, looked absolutely fantastic while he was out there. Stanek, again, I believed during our pregame was going to get the 9th inning if that was the situation in a win today, and that's exactly what happened to close the game out with no Edwin Diaz. What do you think the approach is in a situation before you have to get to Edwin Diaz between Diaz and Manaea? Who gets those filler innings there in between?
I think it's going to be Maton and Stanek. I think what Stanek did today, I think put some more confidence in Mendoza. And again, I talked about this with the veterans, right? Stanek has been there before. Maton has been there before. Now, he pitched a ton of pitches. He pitched 3 days in a row. He had a day off. But if you really think about it, right, I mean, you can use a lot of people, right? Reed Garrett's still out there. I don't know if you want to go there. I mean, they might. But if Diaz is available, because again, we assume he's available, but we don't know, right? Mendoza's not going to play his hand here, right? He could say he's available and he might not be. We all knew he wasn't available today. And that's the crazy thing, right? The Mets had a 4-run lead. It wasn't really a save. So, it didn't come up to that point where it's like, oh, would he use Diaz? Crazy thinking like that, but he didn't have to because the Mets had a 4-run lead. I think it's going to be Maton Stanek. If Manaea goes 6 innings, which listen, if he goes 6 innings, I'm okay with, because with what we use today with Buto going 2 innings, and I think he threw 26 pitches, if I'm not mistaken. He hasn't pitched in 5 days, so he might be available tomorrow for at least 1 inning. And especially if we're in the lead, I want Buto out there for 1 inning, to be quite honest with you. In whatever scenario, 7th, 8th, 6th, it doesn't matter. Wherever, and Mendoza put him in the 7th inning. So, and it was interesting because I thought he was going to hold Buto for the 9th, but because it was the big part of the order coming up, he's like, I ain't playing games. 7th inning and 8th inning, and no playing games. And then Stanek had to deal with 8-9-1, and it worked out perfectly. But I think Buto could be available for 1 inning if the Mets are in the lead. If it's tied or maybe a 2-run lead, I think they're probably going to go with Maton Stanek Diaz for 7-8-9.
I think there's a potential to see, depending on how far Sean Manaea can go, to see Reed Garrett tomorrow as well. That's what I think. But again, you talk about an option to have in Stanek that has pitched in World Series games, right?
Yep.
That can throw 99 mile per hour fastballs by hitters. That's such a, I think, I'm not going to lie to you, of all the deadline moves that happened, and you talk about a guy that came into the Mets, right, from the Seattle Mariners organization with a 4.5 plus ERA. That was the most underrated move in my mind in bringing Stanek in here, because again, the stats that he put up in Seattle did not and does not tell the full story of the guy that you saw in Stanek in Houston during those World Series runs that they had. So again, props to David Stearns, props to Carlos Mendoza. These guys know what the hell they're doing, and we are forever grateful for that. So final thoughts, Rob. Obviously, please, please, please hit those thumbs up on both channels. Subscribe to both channels. We'll be back with the pregame and the postgame for you all tomorrow. Later start, 7:30 p.m. first pitch. We'll probably do 5:30 p.m. pregame like we usually do, somewhere around then. Please turn on those notifications to both channels as well, so you guys can get notified when we go live, and you can hop in the live stream, or you can just watch the replay. If you're watching the replay, hit the thumbs up. Final thoughts here from us before we head on out of here.
Yeah, listen, play a team game again, right? This was a team win today, team effort. Everybody needed to step up, did step up. Guys struggling, stepped up, right? Your pitcher didn't have it early. The offense says, no, we got you. And then when you needed a pitcher to do their job, Severino did it for the last 2 innings. Buto did it. And then Stanek finished it, right? It was a complete team effort. They're looking like they're just cruising right now. They're loose. They didn't look tight at all. All the pressure is on the Brewers because their history is in their heads now, just like we talked about the Mets, right? Changing the narrative. They basically did that with that Braves win, the win against the Braves. I just feel like they're loose, they're having fun, and again, they don't think they're gonna lose. And that mentality is a dangerous mindset to have for any team that's facing the Mets. And right now, all you gotta do is win 1 game. That's it. Win 1 game. Game 3 doesn't matter right now. Go in. Sean Manaea, your best pitcher, your ace, is going on the mound today. Put that nail in the coffin. Call it a day. Get 2 days off. And we'll see you on the turnpike in Philadelphia. That's what they got to do. Put the hammer down, guys. Let's go, Mets.
Job's not finished. We're not satisfied. The Mets get the job done for now in game 1 with an electric back and forth 8-4 victory. This has been the Mets postgame show with your guys CP and Rob. Let's go Mets. We'll see you all for the pregame and the postgame tomorrow. Get the job done. Don't play around. Your ace and Sean Manaea is on the mound tomorrow. Get him some runs, and let's get out of Milwaukee with an early series win. Let's go Mets. Catch you all tomorrow. Peace.
Let's go Mets.